Welcome to No Question About That. This is the midweek pod. Well, sort of. It's a Friday evening as you're listening to this. Probably. I'm Ed with Tom today. How's it going, Tom?
Good. This is later in the week because I've just moved house, so it's been a bit of a stressful one. Yeah, all sorts.
Never fun.
It isn't. On a Thursday as well. It's a weird day of the week.
Fortunately, I have not had to move for 5 years, but that was transatlantic,
yeah,
so that was
it wasn't
interesting.
Quite the same as that, yeah. I've actually gone back to your neck of your old stomping ground, so into Birmingham.
Very old stomping ground now. I've lived outside of that city for quite a lot longer than I ever lived in it.
Yeah, you don't have a Brummie accent in any way.
Never did,
okay.
Actually. Bit of a mutt family, and I don't know, just never really had one. All right, we're going to talk about fallout from the Liverpool game. It's been a good week. United beat Liverpool at Anfield, last minute winner. Doesn't get much better than that. What it means, and Ruben Amorim basking in some of the glory, and it not being toxic on social media for the past week has been very nice. Thank you very much. We'll talk about some of the news. It's Bruno's 300th game. There's some speculation about new midfielders and so on, and then we'll get onto Brighton and preview that one, which I suspect will be quite tricky. No news there since they just regularly beat us. Home, away, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. They're kind of our bogey team in a lot of ways, aren't they? And you think after a beautiful win last week, you just want something easy. And I feel like after that game as well, everyone was like saying, oh yeah, they have to follow it up against Brighton now. They have to follow it up. And we do. We need to, well, I'm really sorry about this, but I keep thinking of that guy's hair. It's just so ever present and pervasive. I just also want that thing to be over. So I feel like we need to get to 5 wins. But
are you ready to confront him at a game? You're going to take him on and get him some 50 cups?
I feel like I'm also doing the same thing in a lot of ways. It absolutely looks ridiculous if anyone's watching the YouTube video. So
well, it does now because you just pulled it out.
I did.
It's gone on floppy over.
I'm going to try L'Oreal it back in. No confronting, but it still annoys me. But having them next week, and like I say, I feel like everyone was kind of saying like, oh yeah, no need to follow up against Brighton. We do, but Brighton are our bogey team. We always lose to Brighton. They're a really good team. They don't have any European football either, so they're coming off a fresh week themselves. It's such a difficult game to follow up.
Yeah, it really is. All right, we'll go into that in a bit more depth. It's just been nice this week to kind of enjoy the moment of beating Liverpool at Anfield, last-minute winner, Harry Maguire, knee slide, and all of that, and some very good performances, less pressure. We don't have to moan about it. I never look at the bottom half of the internet, but a bunch of people on Spotify were like, you and Dom were really negative about the game. Did we lose, lads? I was like, I remember feeling like that. I remember feeling like I was happy we won, but there's a realisation that this isn't suddenly a good team. And in fact, Ruben Amorim said it himself after the game, we're the same team we were 90 minutes ago. And the moments mattered in that game. Details win football matches. We had great spirit and great fight, and in the big picture tactics, Ruben Amorim got it right. He as Slot outed himself in saying we can't play against teams that go long. What's everyone going to do now? Yeah, sorry, Arnie, we didn't play the right style for you. No, it's not Arnie. Arne, isn't it? I called him. Yeah, just whatever. But there is a realism, I think, about this, that was one moment with a very specific formation in a style of football that can do well against some teams that press high. So we negate our weakness, which is central midfield, at least in terms of numbers and number of people, and our ability to play out the back, both weaknesses, and we just kind of negate that and negated Liverpool's strength, which is high pressing. There's no point high pressing if your opposition just goes direct. In fact, it can be a big weakness. But there is a realism that I don't think this is a particularly good side still, and we may well come crashing down to earth this week. That's not being negative. That's just like Brighton are quite well set up to counter that approach. But it's been good all the same, hasn't it? Like, not feeling too negative about this club for once, for the first time in 2 years.
I know, and like Sunday night was just amazing. It's one of those days where where you just want to take in all of the content. And there are so few days like that these days where you're looking at every single clip to look at the background of how that person's looking at that time. And I love the clip of Maynard getting picked up by one of the coaches and stuff. I can't remember who it was. I posted it onto Blue Sky, and it's just like it's amazing to just and Yoro in the background running on and just jumping up as just after Maguire scored. Those moments are amazing. I love Xerxes, Mazraoui on the pitch, like screaming at each other, like how delighted they were. They both didn't even get on the pitch. So there's talk about Xerxes potentially wanting out and leaving, but it just shows how much he loves the club, how much the spirit matters in that dressing room, and how together they are despite everything that's gone wrong under Amorim. Like to have a performance like that just really shows, obviously, that the players are massively behind him, but also just the spirit of the dressing room is really, really good right now. And I think all of the points you mentioned are fair, that this isn't a great team. They just haven't become a great team overnight, but it shows that it's further evidence of the fact that under Amorim, there's been so many small margins in defeat and loss. And it's kind of been that way under most of Ten Hag's reign as well, that we were either winning by one goal or losing by one goal a lot. And we have been for the past couple of years. And you look at like the chance creation and our XG and that type of thing, and just watching it, giving it the eye test, we create a lot of openings, we create a lot of chances. And throughout the horrendous run under Amorim last year, it was the same thing. We were getting into the right positions, we just weren't making the right decision, and therefore we went on a huge run of like losing by one, or the small margins just not, the look not quite going our way, and it went our way on Sunday. And you can't underestimate just how big of a win that was. Like you say, the bottom half of the internet were out in not of United, but of other clubs saying, "Oh yeah, policing our celebrations. Oh yeah, they haven't won the European Cup." Chris Sutton was on 606 immediately talking about it. He also backed it up on the Monday Night Club, chatting about like over celebrating. Like we didn't even over celebrate, to be honest. The players were on the pitch like 3 or 4 minutes and then walked off. Like I don't know what people are talking about, but also this is the way you celebrate when you beat a team that you haven't beaten since 2016, was it? Yeah. And you also celebrate when you beat your best rivals in the English Classico, which is basically what it is. Yeah, it's enormous, and it was just so beautiful. And we also celebrate like that most away wins. Anyway, you stand with your fans. You celebrate with them. This is their moment as much as yours, and it creates that bond between the two. It's just absolute nonsense, and I love it. I love it as well. Like, I just want them to do more of that. I wish they would hang around for like 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to the Forest game in the next week, and I'd absolutely love it if they hung around more. I feel like they don't hang around enough. But yeah, it's crazy. Right. Celebration police out.
Oh, celebrating police, they can just fuck off. Honestly, football is nothing if it's not about passion and excitement and moments loving like the moments. Otherwise, what is it?
Yeah.
Chris Sutton will be out this weekend complaining about Real Madrid or Barcelona winning the Clasico in Spain, right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They're not allowed to celebrate. You can't. You've got to go. And honestly, everything has to be content because it's Manchester United. And if they walked off without talking to the fans or celebrating, they'd be accused of not caring enough, right? And not being important. And it doesn't, So that's obviously nonsense. But I enjoy that kind of stuff. It obviously wound people up.
I know, and
I enjoyed Slot complaining about United's tactics, and I enjoyed Liverpool fans complaining about McAllister's bump on his head and the referee not stopping it quick enough because, fucking inject that stuff. Give me the fucking bath of tears, the sad fuckers.
It is true, but it does annoy me in the same respect. Like, the Slot comments, and I think Slot's in a little bit of trouble because I think there's one thing defending your team, but there's another thing basically talking absolute nonsense. Like you say, coming out and saying that, oh yeah, I hate it when we play teams with a low block, or the worst thing imaginable is conceding a goal in the first minute. Yeah, obviously. Like, it changes the game for everyone. But also, like, you've got to acknowledge the game state. He was talking about the amount of chances that we have. If you look at the possession stats, we had a higher XG than them in the first half, by the way. And they were behind in the game for 90 minutes of the 100 that we were actually playing. Any team who are at home who are behind for that long are going to create more chances and have more possession than the away team who are ahead. That's just the way that that's just the way that football works. Like XG will have an impact. The game state will have an impact on the XG and the chance creation and the possession stats. Like it's just a nonsense. I don't even particularly think we were in that much of a low block in the first half, especially. Like, we were pressing them very, very well. Like, he was just talking.
It was a mid-box, and it's a mid-box structure. I mean, it just wasn't a low block, and Carragher said it was, and he got it wrong. But yeah, it just wasn't.
And it annoys me in some respect, but also in a little bit makes me think, yeah, you're chatting nonsense because you're a little bit scared here. You're a little bit scared how this is going. They've been so lucky they got Frankfurt in midweek. Like, Frankfurt are an awful team. Bundesliga are rubbish. Bundesliga is rubbish. They lost 5-1 to Atletico in the last round. They're so lucky they had that, but they've got Brentford at the weekend, and I think that's about as bad as a game as they could have. Brentford are going to play long. Brentford are going to play direct. And you're going to maybe get slot after the game talking about, we don't like it when you play. Oh, sort your team out to play differently then. United have been playing long ball for the whole season now. Oh, yeah, they changed their team. We didn't expect them to not go with Seska. That's literally how football works, mate.
Love it. Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, as always, there's more than one way to skin a cat, more than one way to win a game of football. Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree with Slot in a sense that I don't think there's a top side that has won playing like United has for 30 years. Basically, you look back to Blackburn or Leeds in the early 90s, that's pretty much the last time anyone this direct has actually been good, but that's not the goal right now. The goal is to get into the European places, and if being a bit more direct, and I think we're either 1 or 2 for percentage of long balls. It was the biggest percentage of long balls for United side for 7 years, something like that, 7-8 years in a single game. And over the season, we're 1 or 2 for the number of long balls. So we are very clearly playing quite direct. But that is not to say that's morally wrong in some way. It sounds all very Arsene Wenger, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like the only acceptable way to play football is tiki-taka. I mean, obviously not, right? There's many ways to win a game of football. I think strategically, United cannot play like that in every game. We'll get to the Brighton game and exactly like how that might not work quite as well. Hopefully Amorim is smart enough to change it up. He has changed up quite significantly the United's out of possession structure, and it's had a big impact, right? And so it's taken him a very long time, and the frustration I think with him is that some very obvious things that were wrong with the team he didn't change early enough, and he was too dogmatic, and that has caused him to have a 35% win rate. Now, if he's going to change I'm not saying he's necessarily going to change his formation, but if he's willing to change some of the strategic approach, right, which he clearly has done out of possession, in order to get the best out of these players that he's got, I think that's a much smarter approach than just waiting out and hoping that United could fix all in the transfer market, because it doesn't always work like that, right? So anyway, great week all round.
And you have to adapt to what's happening with your players when we've got Banter in goal, and this is what we had at the start of the season, and he can't particularly play very well with the ball. You've got De Ligt, who's not the most comfortable on the ball. You've got Maguire, who's not the most comfortable on the ball. Like, why are you going to build up, play to the big man? We've just brought Šeško in, who's really, really good at winning flick-ons. Like, you've got to adapt to the players that you have, and like you say, he's been very dogmatic in the past, and changing that slightly has also made us so much more effective, because Mbeumo is so great at making those runs off Šeško. Banter was also, he had, if you look at his stats, he has one of the lowest percentage of long ball success rate in the league, but he also he kicks so many out to Šeško. He was actually quite good at like hitting him, I thought, and Lamens is pretty good with both feet at hitting the big man. I think that works perfectly, but also I think acknowledging that the Premier League is changing. The Premier League is becoming a lot more physical than it was. The Premier League is becoming a lot more long ball. It's becoming a lot more set piece orientated. I think the direction of travel. Therefore, you look at Guardiola, how he's changing his system. You look at like Arsenal in general, just how reliant on set pieces they are. You look at Slot and you're thinking, have you been caught in a bit of a, with your change of system, are you caught in a Premier League that doesn't potentially like work for that, what you're trying to do with your high press? If everyone's just going to go over the top of you, which like is we're the second highest in the league, but a lot of teams are playing a lot more long balls now. Like Arsenal even have got a big man up top. Is Slot potentially being left behind a little bit? Are we part of the direction of travel?
Not everyone has to play the same way.
The answer's always somewhere in between. And I think that's what we will find a nice balance where we will be able to build up from the back, but also be able to play along. And it's nice to be able to do both.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like the variety in the Premier League, and both quality and systems and approach will be tested over the year, and Slot will be proved right if Liverpool win the league, right? I mean, he's helped by dropping £400 million on forwards. that kind of helps too, but we'll see if he's right or not. I mean, the homogeneity in the Bundesliga is what makes it kind of boring, honestly. Everyone basically plays the same way. There's a couple of exceptions. Obviously, Xabi Alonso's team played slightly differently. Not everyone was, mid-block, gegenpress and counter, but a lot are. Spain is actually interesting for how different it is. Everyone thinks about Madrid, Barcelona, short passing game and stuff like that. But actually, if you watch some of the teams a bit further down the league, they are quite direct, right? La Liga is not exactly what you'd think about it. And also things change over time. We had this long period of the Guardiolaification of the Premier League where the number of passes per game went up and up and up every single year. Systems change. Doesn't mean it's going to be forever. This might be a phase. This might be a long phase. Who knows? Might be a very short one because it proves to not be a winning phase. But it's always in counter to what's happened before. So if you have short pressing, short passing, positional, high press systems like Liverpool under Klopp or Guardiola's, obviously very different approach, but some similar philosophies within that approach. One way of countering it is to not try to build up from the back if you're getting press baited and just go a bit longer, and that's a counter to what has happened before it. There'll be a counter to this, right? We'll probably find a bunch of teams get a bunch of big men up at the back or play a slightly deeper line, defensive line in order to counter it, and it'll become less effective. Look at United at Brentford, where we all said before the game, if United try and go long in this game, Brentford will just sit a bit deeper. There'll be no space behind, and it'll be a waste of time, right? Against Liverpool, it was interesting because Konate and Van Dijk are world-class headerers of the ball. I think Van Dijk has declined significantly, but not in the air. But the approach was not to try and challenge for those balls. It was just to collect the second ball, which was kind of interesting. That was an innovation, wasn't it? I mean, it was Wimbledon 1985 innovation, but it was an innovation.
Yeah, and that's what you want from Amorim as much as possible. And like you say, he's been so dogmatic for such a long time. Just adding a little bit of pragmatism has just made it so much better. And also just the fact that we have attackers who all know what to do, who all work really hard, also have so much quality. It just helps enormously as well. Quality
and a bit of spite as well. I liked Cunha's shithousery. We needed some of that.
I saw an interview with him after the game with, I don't know who it was with. There's some like Norwegian channel maybe. John O'Shea was on the panel, but I don't know who it was. It wasn't Irish, I don't think. And he's just so softly spoken. He was so like kind. He's got such kind eyes, such a kind smile. Like he was really humble. I love those characters who like seem so soft off the pitch. Seem so nice. It's like, oh yeah. Just being a real humble guy, and then you see him on the pitch and he's the complete opposite. He's so you could tell he's played for Simeone. He's got so much of that about him.
Yeah, he could do with a goal or assist, obviously, to get that monkey off his back. I mean, he's been playing well. It's just we want the numbers from him, otherwise the narrative will start to become, well, no goals, no assists. He's a forward, and that is right. He is a forward. He should be scoring goals, making goals. But his all-round game is superb. He's a real He's important tactically because you can give him the ball in difficult situations, he'll turn and run, and you did that repeatedly against Liverpool, and it's a real out in this system that is like undermanned in midfield. To be able to give him the ball and let him break the lines like that is a real win.
Yeah, you don't see many players who have that tenacity and technical quality. Like there are so few of those that exist. They're like unicorns a little bit. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is actually quite similar to that. He's an absolute workhorse, and he's very has a lot of quality. But Cunha has that in absolute abundance. Like the way that he was just getting shouldered off the ball, being on the floor, like keeping possession, always finding the right pass, like very safe with his passing at times, like not doing anything stupid, a little bit like Bruno does. Like he was a lot calmer and tidier on the ball. I feel like he's a godsend, and like you say, it's a numbers game, but I like the way he responded to the question on the interview that I saw when they said that. He's like, I'm just doing what I'm here for the team. It didn't seem like it was something that was bothering him. Like he got some credit from John O'Shea via the interview, and he was just like, oh, it's really nice to hear that. And you just want to. The reason why you want to see people score is so they can be loved. And I feel like I think that it will benefit him so much to feel like he is loved, especially at a new team. It's always really super important.
All right, very good. Well, you mentioned Bruno in there. Here's the pro segue here. 300th game for... It's not pro because you should never mention it. Breaking the fourth wall, isn't it? 300th game for United, for Bruno. Just an incredible 5.5 years, well, nearly 6 years now since he joined the club. Easily the best signing in the post-Ferguson era. Just no competition whatsoever. Amazing numbers on goals, assists, secondary assists, which is a thing apparently. Expected threat, whatever it is.
So American.
Number of progressive passes, the number of big chances created, the number of chances created, the number of shot creating actions, the number of goal creating actions. Every single metric, world class in every single dimension. And then we've come to this new phase of his time at United where he's playing in central midfield. And the thing that everyone said was, well, he takes so many chances with the ball because, risk-reward ratio is there in football. And now he's like leading the charts with his pass completion rates and stuff like that because he's just an elite world-class player in any position. I'd like him further forward. But just an amazing 6 years at the club. Personally, never want it to end. I didn't understand for a moment the conversation around taking any kind of money for him because what are you going to spend to replace it in? Leadership, goals, assists, chances, all of it. Anyway. Maybe you're going to be like, no, we should have flogged him and bought Adam Wharton.
I'm definitely less on him than you are. I can't deny anything that you said at all. And it's difficult to have the argument because you could just literally present exactly what you have. And you see that beautiful, incredible assist that he generated on Sunday. And I don't think there's a single player in the Premier League, maybe not that many in world football who could have created that opportunity, because that's what you always get with Bruno is the arrogance and the delusion to even attempt something like that. Like no one else would have attempted that. They would have taken a touch and then put the ball in. But because of taking the touch and putting the ball in, you wouldn't have had that moment, that ability for someone just to nod it in like that. This defense would have become set and they would have got into their position, and therefore that chance wouldn't have been created. That's what you get with Bruno, and that's what I find it difficult to see that in the moment, because it's almost like I don't have that creativity. I don't have the vision that he has to see that he's taking that risk, because he knows that if he can make that, then he'll create a chance. And this is the reason why he creates so many chances, the reason why he gets so many assists, the reason why he scores so many goals is because he has that incredible creativity, incredible vision, incredible, genuinely like arrogance to think that he can actually pull that off. And there are a lot of moments where he doesn't. And it looks stupid and it looks clownish because he tries a silly pass and it goes nowhere, or it's like you just think just choose the easier option, just keep the ball, play it backwards, whatever. But that's what you get with Bruno. You get that ability that no one else has, and the ability that no one else would even think about doing. And there are definitely times where I think right now, game management, keep the ball. You don't need to try that. And that's what I think winds a lot of people up in general about Bruno. But you've just got to look at like upside, and he is a diamond and has been absolutely incredible for us. I think the work rate always goes underappreciated because it's been a constant for so long. Like the way that we've had so many people lose motivation and faith in the project of Man United because they come here with a big reputation, or they're on the up, and then they go through a bit of bad form, or the team goes through a bit of bad form, and then we never have the same player again. It's happened to almost everyone but Bruno, but he has that incredible steeliness to just keep going. And yeah, I'm sure it winds his own teammates up at times. It winds us as fans up when you see him moaning and just berating and looking a bit petulant. But that's because he cares so much and he believes so much. And if we had 11 Brunos, I think sometimes it would be an absolute car crash of a game. But if we had 11 Brunos on another day, it would be absolutely incredible. He's so enigmatic, but he's also so like one in a million in a lot of ways. I think if we'd never had Bruno, we could have been an absolute. Well, we weren't that far off relegation last year.
Yeah, I think my challenge with this kind of debate about Bruno is that sometimes it's presented as these are two equal things. Like the downsides of Bruno, he flaps his arms a bit. So what? I mean, Amorim talked about it in the press conference today, talked about him being a great leader. He's someone that cares and he's demonstrative about it. Does it take away anything from his game? I don't think so. Why does anyone care? It's just not important, right? There's that bit. Then there's the possession bit, which is, I just think if we have that debate, what would you rather have? Like 11 people passing the ball sideways, Van Gaal football? Of course you don't, right? There's risk and reward, right? And you need a balance in a team. I don't remember too many debates on fucking fan panels on Sky Sports about whether Kevin De Bruyne gave the ball away too much. Check his pass completion rates out. They're in the 70s. Right? He gave the ball away a lot because he created a lot of chances. And you have to, in the most difficult thing, when you're facing often 10 people in front of you in a very narrow space, is to find an option to create a goal. And that's why Bruno is, as you say, one in a million, because there's so few that are able to do that. And like he's changed his game this season, again, not just with the passing, but look at the charts for ball recoveries and interceptions and stuff like that. I think he's second on ball recoveries to Elliot Anderson this season. He is our best passer, our best chance creator, our best ball recoverer. He runs the most. And I mean, there may be an argument this summer for changing things around if he wants to go. If he wants to stay, I'd keep him for as long as possible, because the downsides of we get some money. So what? We get some money. Like the question is, who'd you spend that on? And can you mitigate for all the things you would lose by spending that money? And that's very, very hard to do because you can still only play 11 players, right? Yeah. So if you go, we could buy 2 players with this, you can still only play 11. And in this system, you only play 2 in midfield.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking in the summer with our track record. Like, wow, we get all this money and we lose our captain, our best player, and we replace him with absolute nonsense. I also think that the conversation around him not being able to play in his position currently is too soon for us to make that judgment. It was too soon for us to make that judgment last season. I think it's even too soon to make that judgment right now. Like he's not played in that position very long. Like you look at Paul Scholes, for example. It's just a very obvious example from when he was at United. Like Scholes didn't just become a deep line player overnight. It had to be built over over a certain amount of time. He also was playing beside Carrick. He's acknowledged this himself. If he didn't play beside Carrick, he wouldn't have been able to become who he was able to, like what he was able to become in the end, which was potentially one of the best players to almost ever play that position, you could say. I think it will take time for Bruno to really properly establish himself in this position, but I think it's just silly to say that he was never going to be able to do it. Like, yeah, definitely questions over some of his discipline and the like his positional sense of playing in that role. But if he's only just adapted to playing in that role, it will take him time. It's just obvious. A player who's played that way for their whole career compared to someone who's just moved there. But I believe that he does have the intelligence to potentially make that role his own in time. And also just from a sense of his career and how his legs are going to be playing in that role, when he kind of loses his ability to run as much, also potentially might be able to help. He might be able to become more grounded. We'll see how he adapts. I just think it's very silly to rule out a player of his intelligence and say that he's not going to be able to play that position, especially considering his technical qualities as well. Like, you think if he can really properly establish himself in there, like Amorim thinks he can, then he's going to become a world-class centre midfielder.
Well, I think he already is, if you look at the numbers. I mean, the question marks, of course, are over. I mean, there was the goal United conceded where he let the man run past him defensively. He didn't track him. That obviously is that's a different thing than the ball recoveries and the running around tackling and stuff like that. That's understanding a very different aspect of being a central midfielder that you don't get as a number 10, right? So there is that. I don't think that's a question mark about Bruno the player. That's a question mark about the system and use of resources that we have in the squad and whether that's the right decision to do that, right? Because, we were just talking about Cunha earlier. I love him. He's never going to put the numbers up that Bruno does. And the decision made in the summer was to replace Bruno in the team with Cunha. People talk about it as replacing Rashford or Garnacho, but they don't play in that role, right? Amorim made a decision that when we brought Amorim in, we made the decision that he played with two number 10s who are not on the touchline playing wide, and they're not out to in players that Rashford and Garnacho are. We talked about it when Amorim first came in, going, I'd look at both of those because, go back and check the old pods because they're not an easy fit. Cunha is an easy fit. Bruno was an even easier fit, but they made that decision. Now, I love having Cunha in the squad. Has it made the team better making that decision than keeping Bruno in one of those number 10s and buying a central midfielder? I think that's a much better question and debate than, should we have sold Bruno and bought Adam Wharton? Great player, Adam Wharton. Don't know how he'd adapt to being at United. Same with Carlos Baleba. I mean, he's been destroyed just by the concept of Manchester United, let alone actually putting the shirt on, So, I don't know. It was a total non-starter for me, that one. Other people have different views, of course. But, I would get to the point in the summer where it'd have to, you'd again be making a decision. And in fact, with an extra year gone on his contract and an extra year older, you'd probably be looking at even lower fee. What's the value? What's the real value, honestly, in losing that leadership and quality? Anyway, 300th game for Bruno. It's been very special. And I remember when he first came in, I was on with Paul, actually. And Paul was really excited. And I was like, I've seen him play a bit, and I'm a bit worried about his passing in midfield and how much he gives the ball away. So I've changed my tune. Yeah. Go back and listen to that one. Yeah. All right, there's been some other midfielder speculation this week. We're getting, it's late October, so we're not that far away from the transfer window. I feel like we've only just closed one, but we're opening another one soon. Talk about Elliot Anderson, who's obviously gone leaps and bounds this season. I mean, he was always a very good player, but he's grown even more, I think. Obviously, Carlos Baleba, there's question marks about that one. And then Adam Wharton is the other one. There's been a lot of talk about, and Angelo Stiller. So speculation about all of them basically in the press. I mean, clearly United are thinking about at least one, but probably two midfielders. And if they sell Casemiro and or Bruno in the summer, it might be three midfielders we need, especially since Kobbie Mainoo can't get a game at the moment. And I'm sure will be asking to play on loan somewhere again in January. What do you make of all the speculation? You got a favourite amongst all of these?
I think Elliot Anderson is an unbelievable footballer. I just think he's so good. I think he's I think he is an £100 million midfielder already. I don't think,
well be now,
I don't think that's an over-exaggeration. If you're looking at how much Belieber was going to cost in the summer, I just don't see how he wouldn't go for that. He's starting for England now, which also matters, especially in terms of transfer fee. If he goes and becomes England's starter at the World Cup, how would he be able to be sold for less than 100 million? Technically, absolutely incredible. And also great personality, great tenacity. He has a bit of everything about him, really, really excellent discipline, tactical sense. I just find it absolutely incredible that Newcastle got rid of him. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. When you have a player of that talent, and surely you would see how much talent he has at training, and to not really play him and then get rid of him so quickly seems absolutely baffling to me. I love Wharton. I think he offers a little bit more stability in the sense that I think Anderson's a little bit of a roamer. Mm-hmm. He's more of a ball carrier, whereas I think Wharton can ball carry, but I think he's a bit more of a sprayer.
Passer, yeah.
But I do worry a little bit about his injury record, to be honest.
He missed a lot last season, ankle injury, yeah.
Doesn't have that much continuity. And I think that's the reason why he's not an England starter right now, because I think in terms of ability, he definitely has that. I think that's the big question mark over Wharton. I think he would be a cheaper option, though he would be still expensive. Belieber, last season I would have said he's absolutely unbelievable. But when we but against Newcastle,
he was good in the weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say at Newcastle he was back to almost back to his best, and I'm sure he'll turn up on Saturday and be probably unbelievable and beat us 2-0.
Of course, of course. He probably got the winner at the trip.
I was thinking he'd sell Danny Welbeck for Danny Welbeck to score again at Old Trafford, but yeah, I think Belieber. If I was looking at the Belieber of last season, he would be my favourite, to be honest, because I think that's exactly what we need. He talking about unicorns, he is a unicorn. He has all of the ball winning and ball recovery qualities that you want from, or I think that we are screaming out for. But he also has that amazing ability on the ball. So he would be mine if I was being very greedy. I'd go for him and Anderson together. I think that would be absolutely unbelievable, especially in that system, because they're both great at winning ball back. They're both so tenacious. They're both great on the ball. I mean, having those two together would be a bit of a cheat code. I'm fit. Yeah, that would be the dream.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, if you believe Jim Ratcliffe, then Amorim has got 3 years, or that's what he didn't exactly say. He's got 3 years. He said that he'd like to see that. We'll see. It does depend on results, of course. But then that really does make a difference if you're a long-term believer in Amorim, in the profiles of players you get. There does need to be 2 players in one in there, which, coming back to our Bruno point, he's basically becoming 2 players in one in there at the moment, but you need someone who can cover a lot of space, because you're a man light often. You need to understand how to progress the ball, although in the Amorim system it's obviously direct and wide more than through the centre. Most elite teams progress through the centre. We don't, but we'll see. It's again long term whether Amorim can turn us into an elite side or not. And you need some physicality in there, not just for the running, but for the tackling, interceptions, shithousery, and all of that kind of stuff. So it does make a difference. And then you've got to decide what the future of Kobbie Mainoo is. A link player. I mean, think about the profiles, right? You've got Adam Wharton, who's basically a deep-lying playmaker, gets a lot of balls into the final third with his range of passing. You've got Elliot Anderson, who's an all-rounder, a lot of ball recoveries, a lot of interceptions, a lot of tackling, but also very good progressive actions, very high on progressive actions, either ball carrying or passing. You've got Mainoo, who's pretty much a link player, and it's hard to see him. Obviously, Amorim doesn't see him in a 2 in midfield. He looks like a player that would very much benefit from having a deeper player and a further forward player and a 3 to link between the two. He's obviously great in tight spaces. Again, not exactly what United are trying to do. If you're trying to build up through the middle, that matters. If you're not, it doesn't. So that's just a long way of saying it. The speculation is kind of interesting, but it really depends on if you're a real believer in the system. You get different profiles, and it might not include Kobbie Mainoo. That's a big fucking bet on a manager who's got a 35% win rate. No matter how many wins at Anfield he's got. Well, it's one. But so anyway, there's also speculation about Josh Zirkzee potentially wanting out. No surprise here. He doesn't fit. I mean, if you're saying like he's not a striker really, is he? He just doesn't score any goals. So if he's a number 10 because he's a good link player, he's not as dynamic as Cunha. He doesn't score as many goals as Mbeumo. He doesn't create as many chances as Bruno. He's not as good a presser as Mason Mount. So he's got to be 5th choice for one of those positions. So.
It's a real shame because I really like him, and I really like watching him play as well.
Agree.
He seems like a really great lad. He's unbelievably silky. I feel like he would become a bit of a cult hero if we were a successful team, and he kind of already is a little bit because of that time he was booed off against Newcastle.
We played a 2 up front.
Yeah,
in whatever system,
like back in
Fergie, he's the Berbatov,
exactly. 90s era, 100%. But even late 2000s, like 2007, 8, 9 era, he would have been great. But it's just a real shame that it's just not going to work, and it's also just a real shame for him and a number of players like Mainoo who. We just don't have any games for them to play in either now. And you can't blame anyone for that, apart from the lads who didn't get us into European competition last season. And also for losing at Grimsby. If we had loads of games and Zirkzee playing in the cup games and playing in the odd European game, you also got a chance to prove yourself and think, maybe make us question our decision, saying, he's not a number 9, or change Amorim's opinion that he could play one of the 10s. But you just look at it and you think it's not really going to work. He's actually good in the air. He's great at linking play, but compared to Šeško, who can also do both of those things, he's also super dynamic, presses really hard, and presses really well. It's not going to happen, is it? And when we're also favouring playing Mount or Cunha or Mbeumo in a bit of a rotating 3, which I think's worked pretty well in almost every game this season. Obviously, there's been drawbacks in that. He becomes, like you say, fifth choice, but also choice behind even no striker.
Yeah, absolutely. Because although you'd think he'd be a good false 9, he doesn't really have the instinct to. Well, you need players to run beyond him if you're going to do that, right? And that can sometimes be a problem. Even against Liverpool, that was a challenge. Yeah, I would take the money for him as much as he seems like a nice guy. Not sure I love his celebration. Gun celebration. Don't love it. But he seems like a nice guy, and he's lovely to watch with his technique and stuff like that. But he doesn't score enough goals. He doesn't create enough goals, and he's not very quick. And so I just kind of I can't see him becoming a success, right? So nice to have around the squad, but if you can use that money and repurpose it to something else, then I'd do that. We didn't really talk about Angelo Stiller. I mentioned him because there'd been a lot of speculation. It would be a no for me on Angelo Stiller because of the physicality. Lovely passer of the ball. I think he would struggle in the Premier League. I could yet be proven wrong, but my suspicion is he would find it quite hard. So to take, especially in those kind of midfield areas where you have to take the ball on a half turn under pressure a lot, it's not great there. But anyway, another piece of news: JJ Gabriel has been training with the first team squad. Just some unbelievable videos of this kid. I mean, I love watching the academy side. When I get to, often it has to be highlights because they play lunchtime, but just beautiful skill. He's obviously moved up a couple of levels this season just because he's so good. There's an incredible video going around of him playing keepy-uppy with a wall and a tennis ball. Yeah, I'm sure you saw that one. I tried doing that. I couldn't make two of them. I was never particularly skilled as a footballer anyway. And it's not. This isn't a new thing. They've had 2 academy players training with first team squad like every week. Makes up the numbers, but also gives them a pathway. Gets them to fit. Gabriel's an interesting one because he's out of contract soon, and they would really like him to sign in. It can only be 2 years given his age, but new terms to keep him and show him that there is a pathway. Might not be this season, probably not next, but the year afterwards there's a pathway to getting into the first team squad and all the stuff he wants.
Yeah, this is always the fear right now, and it's the reason why Arsenal signed what's their 15-year-old lad called?
Max Dowman.
Yeah, they signed him to a long-term contract, a professional contract today, or maybe yesterday, because I think people were sniffing around him already, which makes perfect sense. And it's weird. I think we've seen 2 15-year-olds make their debut in the Premier League this season. I can't imagine it's going to happen for Gabriel quite yet. And again, he's another person who's going to... It's a shame that we haven't got those cup games to just see him. That was always the great thing about the cup games, especially like League Cup, is that you can get to see those youngsters come out and express themselves. And like you say, just watching how amazing and how skillful JJ Gabriel is. I posted on Blue Sky something like, I can't wait for us to sell him in like 5 years' time in the same ways that we seem to be doing with all our academy players right now. And I wouldn't put it past us to do that. And then someone rightly said, like, if we don't lose him before that, which is also very true. Yeah, it's so difficult not to get super hyped and super excited when you see players play for the academy, and especially when they're so much better than everyone else around them. And you're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But you just think some of the things that transfer of his transferable qualities to the pro level, his feet are unbelievably fast. And he has incredible final quality and final ball. And you just think having those two things and also being so rapid, like how doesn't that translate to the pro game? You obviously look at a little bit like, where would he fit? You think, he's surely in the current system he'd just be one of the tens behind the striker. He feels like that's quite, because of his ability to go left and right foot, and he's also dynamic. You think he could potentially play in like where Cunha is, like a bit of a replacement for that. And then you kind of just looking at obviously his physicality, which is he's only 15. Like if you put him in,
he's a child.
He's a child. If you put him in the team right now, it would just be silly, I think. And I think this is one of the things that you say, first team training, it is what it is. I wouldn't say he's a Max Dowman. I don't think we'll see him this season. But I think he's only just turned 15 as well, right? So he's not quite the same age. I think he's the school year below Max Dowman.
He's still with the England under 16s this week. So, yeah.
So he's, we're talking 3 or 4 years, I think, but like unbelievable to watch. And that's, like you say, it's one of the great things about watching the underage levels, when you get to see players just playing like that, having fun, and just.
Well, it's a good reminder that the number of players that come out of those under 18 sides and then make it elite levels is tiny. As talented as they are, it's really, really difficult. And you just see the other player training recently with the first team was Shea Lacey. I think there's more of a chance that he gets game times. Yeah, exactly. More chance he gets time soon. You see what happens with young players who get injuries. Their body changes, they're growing. Shea Lacey has had an incredible amount of injuries. It's just been, it has impacted his development. He might have been closer to moving up an age group level sooner had he not had all these injuries. And you just hope the body fills out and they stop getting those. And sometimes it's even worse than just the injuries. They have to relearn technique because suddenly their body is different, and the thing that had become muscle memory is no longer muscle memory. And so it's just to say that just because he's training with the first team doesn't mean he gets in the first team. And if he gets in the first team doesn't mean he makes the progress to the point you'd like to make the progress to, because of all this stuff. You don't know how money, fame, notoriety impacts him. What's his family like? What's his entourage around him like? How does that impact him? Like, we just don't know yet. Like all the sacrifices you make, and he's already made loads to make it this far. How that will change him and his game and all of that kind of stuff. Very early, but very exciting as well because he's an incredibly talented player.
Yeah, super.
So, and I'm old enough to be his granddad. Not quite. No, I'm joking. All right. A player who is an ex-Manchester United player, Marcus Rashford, scored twice for Barcelona this week. He's done some press recently. One piece that wound everyone up, where he basically said that inconsistency in the environment around him led to some of his inconsistency on the pitch, which is probably a fair comment. I don't know.
How is that? I
guess people didn't like the fact that he didn't go, and it's all my own fault as well. You know, because like obviously there's some stuff you can pin on him, like his performances are mostly on him. His training is on him. Him drinking in Belfast, that's on him, right? So there's some stuff he said that was wrong. He also said I can't remember if it's the same interview or a different one, that he'd like to stay at Barcelona. I think it's not new. Like I think everyone kind of realised he was. Yeah, that was the plan in the summer, and his performances. I've watched quite a lot of him actually, both La Liga and Champions League. He's grown in stature over time. Rafinha's out for another 6 weeks by the looks of it, so he'll be starting pretty much every game, whether sometimes through the middle. He started through the middle for in the Champions League game. It was difficult for a while. He wasn't getting the ball very often. Sometimes from the left. He probably should have had a hat-trick actually in that Barcelona game because his ankles got tapped and the ref didn't give him his penalty, and I think Ferran was off at that point, so he'd have been on penalty duty. But there you go.
I've watched pretty much every game as well, and it's just really quite funny to see that. I think in a lot of games that Rashford's actually outperforming Yamal, and in the game at the weekend, I can't remember who they played. It was Granada at home when they scored in the last minute.
Yeah, Araujo.
Hansi Flick took Yamal off with about 25 minutes to go, kept Rashford on because Rashford was playing better and potentially being more of a threat. It's really like awesome to see, to be honest. There's obviously that part of me which is thinking, oh man, how have we let this go? But he doesn't fit. I also just don't think he just would be able to be like this, and to be able to see him playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world with potentially the best player in the world, potentially the best player of the next 20 years, and not just be as good as him or be aside him, to be better than him in a lot of games, and to just be such the player that we expected him to be and wanted him to be for so long, and to see him thrive like that is really quite beautiful. He took his goals so well in midweek against Olympiacos. He's really starting to thrive, really starting to enjoy himself. You can see like he's got a really good connection with the players around him, the younger lads in midfield like Ferran and Pedri and Gavi to a lesser extent. Though my heart does break a little bit, I'm so happy for him, and I don't think it's controversial what he said about I need to have consistency in my life to be able to consistently perform. Like, I think that's the same for almost anyone in any walk of life. If we have patterns, if we have routines, and we know our position, we know our standing, everything else will become easier. And it's been a nightmare at United for him in a lot of respects because of that. Like becoming the right midfielder, becoming a left midfielder, or having the time through the middle, and being under Van Gaal, being under Mourinho, being under these different types of manager, being asked to do so many different types of things. Like, it is, and no matter, not even thinking about the pressure of just being United, having the extra pressure of being a lad who came through the academy. We talk about Bruno and how he's been able to unbelievably adapt to all of the situations around him and not be able to drop. That is, I guess, in some respects, you can say that is the standard, and you would hope that Rashford would also be able to perform to the same level. But there's also the exception to the rule. Not every single player that we've signed has been a bad egg or a bad person or a bad player. The inconsistencies and the absolute ridiculousness of this way this club has been run for so long has created the circumstances of the mess that exists with every single player that we've signed. And players who come through the academy aren't immune to that either. And you see that when he goes to Aston Villa, he started to refine himself again, and he's taken to one of the best teams in the world, and he's finding himself again. He's thriving again, and that's not because he hates Man United or down tools, or because he's a bad egg, or he's a dickhead, or he's poison, or he's a traitor, or he's a rat, or whatever you want to say. If you were on that side of the argument, it's because he's in a place where he feels comfortable again. He knows what to do. He feels like he's had a new lease of life. That's just the way that humans work at times.
Yeah,
and it's just beautiful to see, and no wonder he wants to stay there. Obviously, he wants to stay there, and if we can get a lovely fee for him next summer, after him having a 30-goal season or something like that,
it won't be much of a fee. It'll be 30 million euros, which is the clause that the option that Barcelona have. Yeah, I'm glad he's doing well. I always feel I have to couch anything I say that's positive about him with the negatives, because if you don't do that, you'll get a whole bunch of people on the internet calling you names or threatening to come and murder your children or whatever. And so, just to do that, I recognise that for substantial parts of his time with United, he did not perform at the level we wanted him to. And he made mistakes. He turned up for late training a couple of times. He went to Belfast, pretended and drank for 2 days.
That was awful. I hated that so much, and we spoke about it on the pod, and it drove me nuts.
He shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have done it, and it was a bad thing to do. He was brought back into the squad after that, right? Yeah. So, presumably he apologised to the manager. Otherwise, he'd have been out completely, like Jadon Sancho was, right? So with that mitigation in mind, I think you look at his record, and it is 30 goals and assists in the seasons where what went wrong with him under Ten Hag. Ten Hag took him from being a forward to covering for a left back we didn't have and pushed him wider and deeper, and he clearly got very frustrated. Now, he should have been, I suppose, Bruno, and gone, I just accept any kind of position. What he did was I'm playing in a role that makes me look bad, right? And he I suspect he got that demoralised him, It seemed to do. He had one season where he played with back and was it ankle injury, shoulder injury, and he had to have an operation on the shoulder. Went away to England, then had the operation. So put country first. I know we're not supposed to do that, except your flag wavers and all of that. So that mitigated another season. So I think those are his two worst seasons. The one under Ten Hag / Amorim last season, I think we can almost throw away. It's like the whole team was in a bad place. They shouldn't have kept Ten Hag on. Everyone knew it, except for Jim Ratcliffe. And then Amorim came in and had a completely different mindset in terms of what he expected the team. He said it. I couldn't get him to see the way I wanted to play and train, I think he might have said. So there's some mitigation. If he gets 30 goals and assists for Barcelona this year, I would not be surprised in the slightest, right? Would not be surprised, because he's a player that has extreme quality in moments, right? You play, and people don't like this style of argument. I made the same argument about Bruno. You play players to get the most out of them, and you don't expect them to be every single player on the pitch. We had the same argument about Paul Pogba. He was an attacking midfielder, and everyone was like, well, he's big and physical, so he should be able to defend and should do everything. Mourinho said it in public, right? And it was total nonsense, right? You have 11 players, you're looking for a balance, you try to get the best out of them you possibly can. That's what Flick is doing with Rashford right now. He's not expected to do loads and loads of defending. That's not how they play. They get him as often as possible with the ball in front of him, so he can cut in from the left in central areas, shoot and score. What did he do? He did it twice against Olympiacos in midweek. The exact goal that you want to get from him.
And it's okay to become demoralised by the world around you, and I think that's where we've just got to have a little bit of empathy for him. Being being in football in general can completely blow your mind. And I don't mean that in a good way. Being at Man United can completely blow your mind. The fact that he, like you said, became demoralised by what was happening on the pitch and also off the pitch, I think is okay. The way that the Rashford haters talk about it is like he's created, like, done the biggest sin that's ever existed, and therefore I hate him because of that. Like, yeah, it would have been great if he was like Bruno and had just gritted his teeth and ploughed on through the pain, but not everyone's like that, and Rashford is a sensitive soul. You could tell how much it like did get to him, everything that was going on, and it was just quite awful to watch. Even when he was celebrating goals, he wasn't smiling, and that's not because, again, it's not because he hated United, it's because of the position he was in, like, mentally at the time. And I think not because I'm better than anyone or anything, but I feel empathy for him at that moment. I don't feel like I want to hate him because of it. And there are moments where people can point to and you think he should have done better. And the Belfast thing, yeah, did really piss me off. It really did.
Yeah.
And it pissed everyone off. But like, I want to just think,
who among us has not fucked up?
Exactly.
Right?
When you're so young.
I had a career where I for a good long time, I had a lot of kind of very serious executive power and presence. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it, right? I spent a lot of time in some very serious situations. I've missed board meetings because I was hungover. So, I mean, like, we all fuck up and make mistakes, right? And I once sent an email to a client and all her staff by accident. I hit reply all, in which I called her an arse licker. To her face, right? And it's worse because it was by accident. If I'd done it on purpose, at least I'd be owning that, right? And so it's just to say, you can be as professional and be as serious as possible and make mistakes. Now, if he did it again while he was at Barcelona, and people will wrap all these things up. I was, as much respect as I have for him, I was kind of pissed off with Andy Misson when he did that piece for TalkSport a year back now, where he said, I've talked to 4 managers, they all had problems with him, and the reason why I thought it was a very poor piece of journalism when he's normally very good is because it lacked detail, right? And it allowed people to fill in the gaps, and it felt like character assassination as a result, right? So details do matter, right? So what are the problems? Did he turn up 5 minutes late for training? I mean, Rashford this season turned up 2 minutes late for the bus. And he got dropped.
That news story was massive, despite it happening to about 7 or 8 players in the Barcelona squad that season too.
Yes, exactly. It's always contextless, right? So if he went out, it won't happen because of the culture is very different. But if he was going out drinking and he went up to, I don't know, down to Marbella or something like that and went out clubbing while he's with Barcelona, you'd like, well, second strike, you should learn. I very much suspect he won't be doing that. We've talked on the pod before about, let's say, rumours about his betting. There was one instance which was confirmed that we talked about in detail on this pod. Everything else is rumours, right? We can have a lot of speculation about why that was happening, or maybe it still is. Who knows? You'd hope he's got that under control. But he's in an environment now where the chaos with Barcelona is all off the pitch, right? It's financial. And, they are on a path to solving some of that with the new Camp Nou when it opens, will massively increase their revenues and stuff like that. And so from a football point of view, you've got Flick, very well-known system. You've got a bunch of very good players around him. The issue there is the system like consistent for him? Is he good enough to get in the team? Because they've got some unbelievably good players in those wide areas. Yeah, and it's very, very competitive. And at the moment, he is good enough and he's doing very well. I hope for him it continues, but anyway. Send me the thing that annoys me most about the Rashford haters is not actually the hate. Fine, if you hate him, it's all right. It's the people who feel the need to tweet at me explaining what went on, as if 1, I haven't read all the same things they have. 2, I haven't got any context in the world of football, having been writing and talking about football for 20 years, and you don't think I've heard some inside stories here? For fuck's sake, people, So send me your tweets explaining exactly what went on. It's really valuable, and I love it. Thank you very much. Sorry. I shouldn't do that. Maybe I'll have to chop that whole piece out. All right, we've gone an hour and 5 minutes. Haven't talked about Brighton yet.
True.
They just beat us all the time, Tom. All the time. 3 times in a row at Old Trafford. But they also beat us away as well. Well, I think, how many victories have we got over them since they came into the Premier League? It's not many. 1, 2? Can't remember.
I remember when we got battered by them under Ranić. I can't remember what it was. Maybe 3 or 4-1. And I wasn't at that. I wasn't at the game. I wasn't watching it. I remember just seeing it on my phone and being like, "Oh my God, we are terrible." That was what I thought was like. Things can only get better from this moment when things were like that under Ranić. But now that's just become the norm. And those first 2 games under Ten Hag, I think it was actually the first game of the season. The next season, when we lost to Brighton, and we got battered by Brighton, and we thought, "Oh my God, how long is this guy going to get?" But yeah, they're just a very, very good football team, very well run, obviously, and their players are the types of players that really I become very scared of, especially their attackers. How jinky they are, how smart they are, how dynamic they are, how quick they are, all of that stuff. When you look at our defence and how unlike that they are. Shaw is obviously was a quick lad, but he's not quite the same as he was. De Ligt is not like that. Maguire, who might be out of the game, I'm hoping that he is. Not because he wasn't good last week, and not because I don't like him, but he's just not suited to this game, I don't think. And that's where Yoro has to play for me, because they're not just like, obviously they're not just amazing technical players, but they just also always set up a system which is going to beat us. And I hate these games against Brighton.
Yeah, they're very quick in those wide areas, whether it's Mitoma or Minte. Say it in a Geordie accent, it's perfect. Very good. Yes, both very quick. Out-to-in players will cause us a lot of problems in those channel areas. I mean, I said on last week's Tactics pod that it would be very unfair, but I would drop both Maguire and
I was thinking exactly the same thing. And when I saw they might be injured, I was like, curse.
Yes, I think the players who play in their place would be more suited to this game. Sesko will come in, Cunha will start in that sort of wide area. I mean, it does take away from our pressing. Mount's very good at recognising the moments that the press needs to happen, not just doing the pressing, but when it should happen. Everyone can follow him, right? Which is why coaches love him. But I just think tactically for this game, those 2 changes I'd have made. Yoro is very, very comfortable in those kind of wide channel areas, which is where a lot of the threat will come. De Ligt is more mobile than Maguire. He'll have to watch Welbeck drop off, which caused us all manner of problems last season against Brighton. So it's a shame for those 2 that they're out, and I hope they're not out for too long. And it seemed like it wasn't too serious. Maguire normally comes back quite quickly. Mount doesn't. It's a shame for Mount because he's actually had a very good season so far.
Yeah. I completely agree, and it's not because I'm cheering them not playing. It's just you've got to set up your team differently in different games, and I think it would have been hard for him to drop them both because obviously of Maguire's impact and Mount being the player he is, and us winning at Anfield. Amorim doesn't like to keep the same team, but I could completely see why he would have done that this weekend. But this just makes his job a little bit easier. That the fact that the 2 players who both you and me think that wouldn't have been best suited for this game are now not available. It just makes his job so much easier. Makes potentially like the morality decision feel easier as well. That you're not having a go at these, because you just know that the press will be on like, oh my God, Harry Maguire's not playing it, because there's been like loads of pieces about how Maguire's redemption arc, and all quite right. Yeah. But you just know that Yoro makes a mistake in the game tomorrow and Maguire was dropped, everyone will be having to go at Amorim for making that decision. So it just makes this job a little bit easier.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect Yoro to have a problem with this style of game at all, actually. It's quite well suited to Brighton. They're not going to be launching it. That's where Yoro's weakest with the aerials at the moment. I mean, it's not to say he won't get better over time at that, but that is the weakest part of his game, for sure. I mean, the other thing is, Duncan Van Heck at the back, I think they'll mop up a lot of the longer stuff. We ought to think like where we can cause them most trouble. I would not expect being quite as direct and long would be quite successful. Liverpool weren't very good at sitting two players in front and mopping up. Baleba and Ayeri, if it's those two, probably will be. So anyway, it's just to say I think United probably need quite a different approach in this game. Also, we're at home. You kind of expect a forward to be in the team at home, don't you? So I expect Sesko to be in and us to just change the style a little bit.
Yeah, and Šeško is obviously has so much more to his game than just being able to win flick-ons or like be up against the strapping centre half. And I think he's really good at dropping into those spaces. He's technically really good. He's finding a little bit more confidence as well in his link-up play. I like you say, at home, I think you've got to go with the striker, and I think it just carries so much more threat. I like I said earlier in the show, I really like those three. I think they work perfectly together, but we have struggled to always create that many chances when those three have played together, and not also just create chances, but able to put those chances in the back of the net, and having a designated striker who knows where to stand, knows where to kick the ball like Šeško does is a huge advantage as well for a game like this. Yeah. It's just, like you say, being able to set up differently and change the game plan, but we've had a week to do it, and considering the way we've played in almost every game this season, I think I was thinking this the other day, I think there's only been genuinely the Grimsby game where we weren't better than them, and the City game. I think even the Brentford game on a different day, if we'd have got that red card, which should have been a red card, we win that game.
True.
Even if Bruno still misses the penalty, I think we still win that game. Fulham, we weren't particularly great, but the rest of them, we were arguably the better team in all of those games, I think. And which shows, like, to go back to the point at the start, football is such a game of small margins, and now we've got a little bit of momentum. Hopefully those small margins start to go in our favour a little bit.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, I like Amorim as a person. There was no reason to have any faith in him. There still is not much, honestly, but a few good results in a row. Sunderland, Chelsea, Liverpool, different circumstances. All three of those games could have gone the other way. These are fine margins. Mm-hmm. It's the Premier League. It's hyper competitive. The bottom three at the moment are not the three that came up, right? It's just hyper competitive. This will be an extremely tough game. United are not favourites for it. Barcelona, Brighton, the Barcelona of the South Coast. But they had a difficult start to the season, but their last few results have been much better. They churn players all of the time. It's a problem. They've got a very young manager who, admittedly has, now had a year and a bit in the Premier League, but there's a reason. It's difficult maintaining that model. As I said at the beginning, I was just writing about Brighton for my Substack to kind of talk about their model and like whether it's sustainable or not. I'm going to dump that one. Maybe I'll leave some of it for post the weekend if they beat us, I suppose. But so they, like, constant churn, they are outperforming all of the time, and the fact that they've got a fucking great record against us just kind of shows that. Anyway, difficult game for United, this one. Very, very different to Liverpool. I really hope we can get some momentum, because I imagine we win this game, and there's plenty of reason to think we could as well. Then that is real momentum, because that is a bunch of victories in a row,
Yeah, and then it's Forest the week after and Spurs the week after that. And you look at, I think you made that point about being small margins in every game, but it's Premier League and it's hyper competitive. You look across the whole league and it's the same thing. You look at the way that Tottenham started under Frank and you're thinking, oh, we should have gone for Frank. We went for the wrong manager, but they've dropped off now. They lost at home. They lost at home to Bournemouth. They lost at home last weekend to Aston Villa. You look at every single Liverpool game that's been this season. I think their only wins, apart from the Everton win, have come through last-minute goals. You look at Arsenal, who obviously top of the league, but haven't looked supreme and incredible. Almost every single game in the Premier League right now is competitive, and that's just the way it is. So, yeah, it's right that all of our games could have gone either way, but also that is kind of just the nature. And then this is also there's the thing that's made Amorim's job so hard is that the gap between the best and the not has become so much tighter, and every single game is difficult. And like I said earlier, it would be nice if we had an easier game after the Liverpool game to go into, but there's not that many of them left, to be honest. And even, like you say, the promoted teams are doing well.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Brew hundreds. Bruno's 300th game for Manchester United at the weekend. He got some kind of award, didn't he, at 250? I don't suppose they'll mark this one in any kind of different way, but yeah, it's been a great 6 years. Don't listen to the haters, of which there are some very prominent ones. Hopefully, United can pull out a good performance this weekend against Brighton. What a difference that would make to the narrative, the general feeling around the club, the belief in Amorim amongst the squad, and the fans as well. If we could do that, we are above Brighton in the league, but we are only a win away from the Champions League places. That's how tight it is, really.
And people keep going on about, our bad start to the season. What?
Well, we've lost a couple of times, but 3 times in the league, and
Liverpool have lost 3 times in the league.
Yeah, true. There you go. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Everyone else can catch us at patreon.com/NQAT pod if you want to get the extra pod. I'm doing some writing on Substack, as I've mentioned, but you have to tell people, otherwise they don't go and read it. And what's the point if I'm doing it if they don't? And we'll catch you after the game with the review pod and the tactics pod. Bye now.